afternoon, I'm Mai Rodriguez. Today on Newsfeed at noon. The Philippines marks 39 years since the EDSA People Power Revolution. Various groups expected to hold rallies today. A petition is filed before the Supreme Court questioning the legality of PhilHealth's exclusion from the 2025 national budget. U.S. President Donald Trump and his French counterpart Emmanuel Macron pushed for a ceasefire in Ukraine during a meeting in Washington. And Britain's King Charles enjoys a pint of beer as he visits a local brewery. A petition questioning the legality of PhilHealth's exclusion from the 2025 national budget has been filed before the Supreme Court. This comes as the top court is set to resume discussions on another issue that the state insurer is facing. Our correspondent Joash Malimban now joins us live from the Supreme Court for details. Joash, go ahead.
Mai, in just a few hours at exactly 2 p.m., the Supreme Court will hold the second round of oral arguments on the petitions questioning the transfer of PhilHealth's 89.9 billion pesos worth of excess funds to the National Treasury. But as early as 10:30 this morning, health advocacy groups have already set up in front of the Department of Justice to protest against the alleged unconstitutionality of the issue. They argue that public funds should be directly allocated for free health care. Meanwhile, health reform advocate Dr. Tony Lechon has also filed a petition before the Supreme Court this morning, questioning the constitutionality of the exclusion of PhilHealth from the 2025 General Appropriations Act. He argues that the unprecedented zero subsidy violates existing laws mandating government support for universal health care. Lechon also criticized the excess funds of the PhilHealth. He argues that if the PhilHealth really had an excess budget of almost 90 billion pesos, there should be a better healthcare system for all Filipinos. Today, we expect both petitioners and government representatives, including Finance Secretary Ralph Recto, Health Secretary Teodoro Herbosa, Social Welfare Secretary Rex Gatchalian, and former PhilHealth President Emmanuel Ledesma Jr. to continue their arguments. In the previous hearing on February 4, Solicitor General Menardo Guevara defended the fund transfer, calling it a temporary measure to support government programs without increasing national debt. However, petitioners including One Sambayan Senator Coco Pimentel and Bayan Muna argue that the transfer violates the Constitution. They contend that PhilHealth funds are special funds that cannot be reallocated unless their intended purpose has been fully met or discontinued. The Supreme Court previously issued a temporary restraining order last October, halting the transfer of the remaining 29.9 billion pesos, but 60 billion pesos had already been moved in 3 tranches last year. Today's oral arguments are expected to clarify whether the government's move was constitutional and if the court will grant a permanent injunction. Mai.
Josh, if the Supreme Court rules in favor of the petitioners and issues a permanent injunction, any word on how this would impact the government's handling of PhilHealth funds moving forward?
A permanent injunction is a court order that permanently prohibits a party from performing a certain action. Unlike a TRO or a preliminary injunction, which aims to stop a motion while the case is ongoing, a permanent injunction aims to stop an action after the final verdict has been reached by the court. In this case, if the court grants a permanent injunction, it will stop the government from transferring excess funds from the PhilHealth to the National Treasury. Back to you, Mai.
Now, what exactly happens to the funds once they're transferred to the National Treasury?
Once in the National Treasury, the funds became part of the national or the general fund, meaning they can be used for government programs or infrastructures or even pay of debt. But if they're under the unprogrammed appropriations, the House will decide on how to spend it. But the question here in this case, Mai, is whether the excess funds will be issued back to the PhilHealth or if they will stay in the government, depending on how the court will rule upon it. Mai.
Thank you, Joash Malimban, reporting live from the Supreme Court. Newly installed Transportation Chief Vince Dizon orders top officials at the agency to submit their courtesy resignations by tomorrow, February 26. They include all undersecretaries, assistant secretaries, and directors. In his letter, Dizon says this will give him a free hand in performing the mandate given to him by the president. Dizon was appointed to the post last week after former Secretary Jaime Bautista stepped down, citing health reasons. SMC Infrastructure stresses the need to implement a cashless toll collection after the new DOTR chief suspended its implementation. SMC says without a uniform cashless system, seamless integration between different toll operators cannot be fully realized. The operator adds it has been working closely with the government for the past 5 years to enhance the tolling experience for motorists. A key part of that effort, it says, has been ensuring full interoperability among ETC systems across expressways. Secretary Vince Dizon suspended the cashless toll policy last week, describing it as anti-poor. An SUV driver is killed after the vehicle caught fire along the northbound lane of the Skyway. The incident took place in the area of the gig past 1 a.m. No word yet on what actually caused the blaze, but initial investigations show the SUV hit a barrier before going up in flames. U.S. President Donald Trump and his French counterpart Emmanuel Macron pushing for a ceasefire in war-torn Ukraine. In a joint press conference in D.C., both leaders agreed that the bloody conflict must end now. The Trump administration is already holding direct talks with Russian President Vladimir Putin and Ukrainian leader Volodymyr Zelensky, a move backed by Macron. Macron also said France and other European nations are ready to contribute.
I think it's good to have discussion. I think it's useful to have negotiation. I think it's super important to go to the peace. But my strong point was to say, let's try to get something first which can be assessed, checked and verified. And let's be sure that we build sufficient guarantees on the short run. And this is where we are ready to be engaged. As for France, a lot of my European colleagues are ready to be engaged. But we do need this American backup because this is part of the credibility of the security guarantees. And this is our collective deterrence capacity.
The purpose of our meeting today is to end another battle, a really horrible one, a war, something that we haven't seen since the Second World War, that is ravaging European soil, the deadliest and most destructive conflict that one can imagine. I've seen the pictures, I've seen the satellite photos and lots of other photos, and it's a horrible thing that's happening. Thousands of people are dying a week. This very day is the 3rd anniversary of the invasion of Ukraine, which would never have happened if I was president. That was not going to happen. I'm also pleased that President Macron agrees that the cost and burden of securing the peace must be borne by the nations of Europe, not alone by the United States. And Europe must take that central role in assuring long-term security of Ukraine, which they want to do. And that's not a very big step. The big step is what's going to happen over the next few weeks.
At the United Nations, the Security Council adopts a U.S. resolution taking a neutral position on the war in Ukraine. Until now, the Council had been unable to take any action on the conflict because Russia wields veto powers. The resolution mourns the loss of Russian and Ukrainian lives and reiterates calls for a swift end to the fighting. It received 10 votes in favor, while France, Britain, Denmark, Greece, and Slovenia abstained.
This resolution puts us on the path to peace. It is a first step, but a crucial one of which we should all be proud. Now we must use it to build a peaceful future for Ukraine, Russia, and the international community. As
U.S. President Trump brokers peace in Ukraine, Russia's Vladimir Putin offers America the opportunity for joint exploration of the country's rare earth metal deposits. Putin also open to supplying the U.S. domestic market with aluminum, outlining a future economic deal between the two nations.
Rare earth metals are very important components, very important resources for modern sectors of the economy, and we are not doing much in this direction yet. We must do more. And the purpose of today's meeting is to focus administrative resources on this area at the first stage. By the way, we would also be ready to offer our American partners, when I say partners, I mean not only administrative government structures, but also companies, if they showed interest in working together.
The Russian leader adds he does not oppose Europe's involvement in the talks to ending the war in Ukraine, but he notes that Brussels had previously declined to engage in dialogue with Moscow. The U.S. not abandoning its defense commitments to the Philippines, the Trump administration exempted the country from the U.S. aid freeze applied to other nations. Philippine Ambassador Jose Manuel Romualdez confirmed this on Bilyonaryo News Channel's agenda.
Fondo na pinag-usapan dito, yung 500 million that was already set just a couple of months ago during the Biden administration, and so we were exempted from that one. This was actually approved by the U.S. Congress. We are working on the 500 million a year, which is supposed to be going for our modernization program for our armed forces.
Regarding reports that 300,000 undocumented Filipinos may face deportation, Romualdez says 60 cases have been processed so far. He urges those affected to seek legal help to avoid being blacklisted in the U.S. Hundreds of devotees gather at Constitution Square in Buenos Aires for a massive mass held in honor of Pope Francis. The 88-year-old Pope's condition is slightly improving, according to the Vatican's latest medical statement. Francis grew up as Jorge Bergoglio in Argentina. Since his hospitalization on February 14, prayers have been pouring from his hometown and across the world.
We've been praying all the time. That maybe he's still here. That maybe he's still working. Because he's working all the time.
He's been quite a modern pope, I would say, so he has. Which has been good for the Catholic Church. So it'd be a bit shame to lose him. But let's hope the next pope carries on his legacy.
Over now to Britain as King Charles pulls a pint of beer during a visit to a local brewery. While being given a tour of the Tower Brewery, Charles went behind the counter to pour the pint and took a sip of the local brew. He reportedly had a traditional mid-strength beer, which is one of the brewery's popular special brands. The family-run company is an independent brewery that has been serving locals for 24 years. We're taking a quick break. Up next, we'll give you a look at an innovative Egyptian car project that has become a global export. That and more when Newsfeed at Noon returns. You're back on Newsfeed at noon. The Philippines marking 39 years since one of the most consequential events in its history. Today's EDSA People Power anniversary was not made a non-working holiday by Malacanang. But several schools suspended classes while various groups are holding rallies. Our Paulo Barcelon is on the scene for us at the People Power Monument in Quezon City for more on this story. Paulo, how many people have gone there and what are the events so far?
Mai, according to police estimates as of 11:30 a.m., around 500 people have gathered here at the People Power Monument to attend the wreath-laying ceremony that was led earlier by some officials. But we are expecting more people to come here to the People Power Monument this afternoon. This morning, a simple wreath-laying ceremony was attended by Quezon City Mayor Joy Belmonte, National Historical Commission of the Philippines Chair Regalado Trota, and members of various civic organizations. The wreath-laying ceremony lasted around half an hour and was followed by a gathering of the August 21 movement, or ATOM. Trota says they will continue commemorating the EDSA People Power Revolution regardless of who's in charge. In 1986, Ferdinand Marcos Sr., father of current Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr., left the country after the peaceful four-day People's Revolt.
Hindi pa tapos ang ating laban. Tuloy-tuloy nating ipapaalala sa mga kabataan na meron tayong walang katapusang pagbabago ng lipunan natin. Kahit anong administration, ipapatupad pa natin ang pagdiriwang ng ating anniversary.
Historians and those who participated in the 1986 People Power Revolt welcomed the decision by some schools and universities to either suspend classes or declare today as an alternative learning day, a move they see is important to remember lessons from history. Some also shared what they want to see next year on the 40th anniversary of the EDSA Revolution.
Ako, ang pinakamagandang siguro wish ko talaga for the 40th year that President Bongbong Marcos Jr. will actually take into heart the lessons of EDSA to become a better president.
Ang gusto lang naming mga lumaban dito sa EDSA People Power na to ay ang mga bata ituro yung tama. Walang revisionism sana.
As students, our role should be to remember. We should remember the past. We should remember where we came from and the struggle we've had.
Yung mga libro sinulat daw noong panahon ni Cory o panahon ng mga dilaw. Pakitignan ng petsa, February 25, 1986, pabagsak pa lang si Marcos niyan, 'di ba? And yung days before, kahit sabihin natin people power na, no, si Marcos pa rin ang nasa pwesto.
Well, Mai, like I mentioned earlier, more gatherings and demonstrations are expected this afternoon at 1:30. We're expecting some civil society groups to come here to the People Power Monument and to the EDSA Shrine. And at 6 p.m., a mass will be celebrated at the EDSA Shrine. Back to you, Mai.
Paulo, what groups exactly are still expected to join the rallies today?
Well, as of the latest information that we got, Mai, we're expecting some civil society organizations. We're also expecting some members of the clergy to come here. We also saw some student organizations that are intending to go here to EDSA and at the EDSA Shrine. So we will still see more demonstrations and more commemorations of the EDSA People Power Revolution today. Mai?
Paulo, how's the traffic situation there right now?
Well, if we could just take a look to our right now, as you could see, the traffic over here at the EDSA near the People Power Monument is really good moving. If you're heading towards the Cubao or the North EDSA areas, do expect some really good movement for you. But when you are southbound, if you're heading from Cubao up until at least the Shaw Boulevard area, you can experience some slow-moving traffic up until the Mega Mall area, but it is expected to go a little smoother once you go back to the Ayala areas. Back to you, Mai.
Paulo, lastly, I think we've heard just some of the views shared by students who joined the rallies there, but how does the younger generation see the EDSA revolution?
Great question, Mai. Actually, earlier, I spoke to some students who participated in the wreath-laying ceremony. Some were really interested to try and get to know the historical aspect of this commemoration. I also saw a lot of student journalists covering alongside us, and I asked some of them, they say that covering these events is essential because it also helps not just their fellow students, but school administrators not just see their talent, but also see the value in making sure that they document history, especially in times like this where historical revisionism and fake news is prevalent online. Back to you, Mai.
Thank you for giving us an update. Paulo Barcelon there reporting live from the People Power Monument. The Philippine banking system records 20.3 trillion pesos in total deposits as of the end of December 2024. Data from the central bank shows the number of depositors grew to 128 million, up 14.6% from 112 million in 2023. The bulk of these deposits came from universal and commercial banks. Deposits in digital banks also grew significantly, rising to 96.2 billion pesos from 65 billion a year ago. Overall, the banking sector's total deposits increased by 7% year on year. The Philippines urged to remain vigilant against potential money laundering operations in emerging sectors like online gaming and cryptocurrency. That's despite the country's exit from the Financial Action Task Force's Gray List. Moody's head of Financial Crime Practice Group warns eradicating money laundering risks is no easy task. Online gaming has skyrocketed in the Philippines, with PAGCOR reporting record revenues of 112 billion pesos in 2024. The Maharlika Investment Corporation, or MIC, making a bold move as it extends a whopping $76.4 million loan to power a feasibility study for a high-potential mining project in the Cordillera region. Makilala Mining, a key arm of Australia-based Celsius Resources, is set to launch preliminary work on its copper and gold project. This initiative isn't just about extracting resources, it's also about revitalizing infrastructure. Maharlika will also help fund the construction of a main access road in collaboration with Kalinga Province. Meralco sets a bold course for 2025 after reporting a record high net income last year. Sujin Kim with the details.
Aiming for at least a 10% growth, Meralco Chairman and CEO Manuel Pangilinan is pushing management to hit a core net income of 50 billion pesos this year.
I'm encouraging to management to achieve something at least 50 billion.
Meralco closed 2024 with a 22% increase in core net income, reaching 45.1 billion pesos, driven by record-breaking energy sales and strong commercial demand. Energy sales grew 6.4% year-on-year, setting a new record driven by residential demand due to El Niño effects in early 2024. Meralco surpassed 9 million customers, adding over 200,000 new connections in 2024. Commercial sales surged 77.3%, fueled by business expansion, particularly in hotels, restaurants, real estate, and retail trade.
The malling economy. That's why the commercial consumption of this country is pretty much driven by malls and shopping centers and the like, restaurants, and so that's where we are.
Meralco is awaiting the ERC's decision on its fifth rate petition for a tariff reset, which will impact revenue recovery and consumer billing. After recording a 44.7 billion peso capital expenditure for 2024, Meralco is aiming a jump to 50 billion this year.
It will be largely for networks, no? So it includes load growth, as mentioned by Mr. Aperocho, storm hardening, maintenance, and then a big part of our capital expenditure pertains to AMI.
Meralco looks beyond 2025, focusing on long-term resilience and disaster preparedness.
That we have a very heavy investment schedule for both the DU side and the generation side, no? And future-proofing, especially against disasters. We have to plan for the one big earthquake that may or may not happen in the next 6 years, but if it does happen, we do know that there will be significant impact on the infrastructure of Meralco.
Pangilinan forecasts as much as 11 million meters of wires to be deployed within the next 10 years. The power distributor is awaiting the extension of their utilities' operating rights after the Senate has given its nod to a new 25-year franchise extension.
I think we're relieved that finally both houses of Congress have approved the bill. Ain't over till the fat lady sings, no? Until it becomes law.
Meanwhile, the utility giant is evaluating new emergency power supply agreements for summer demand, but sees no immediate shortages. Soojin Kim, Bilyonaryo News Channel.
Over now to Egypt, where a small local project has now become a major endeavor. Entrepreneur Karim Amin founded Jetcar Kram, a locally manufactured car-shaped vehicle that can move on water. He started the initiative in 2019 with a budget of $50,000. Now he has manufactured over 950 cars, most of which are sold abroad, particularly in the US, the Gulf, India, and many European countries. The total value of his project now is $5 million.
Even the people closest to us do not believe that our products are Egyptian-made, all handmade. All our products are handmade, and our raw materials are also local. There is almost nothing that we do not make here at our factory. We export to 70 countries, the largest of which is America, Canada, and countries in Europe like Spain, France, Greece, and Cyprus, basically all the seafront countries. We also have cars in all the islands worldwide.
Karim says his dream is to see his vehicles being driven on Egypt's Nile.
It's a good feeling, of course, to have the locally made car to drive in the Nile and in all our seas, the Red Sea and the Mediterranean Sea. It's a good feeling, like it's driving in its own territory. It's the car's home country, and it makes me feel proud that I manufacture the cars in Egypt, and they are being driven in the Nile and in our places.
Still to come, a legal victory for U.S. President Trump as a federal judge upholds his ban on the Associated Press. The details after the break. Keep it here on Newsfeed at noon. We're back on Newsfeed at noon. Again, the headlines. The Philippines marks 39 years since the EDSA People Power Revolution. Various groups expected to hold rallies today. A petition is filed before the Supreme Court questioning the legality of PhilHealth's exclusion from the 2025 national budget. U.S. President Donald Trump and his French counterpart Emmanuel Macron pushed for a ceasefire in Ukraine during a meeting in Washington. And Britain's King Charles enjoys a pint of beer as he visits a local brewery. Charges of qualified human trafficking have been filed against 20 foreign nationals arrested at a POGO hub in Parañaque City. The Presidential Anti-Organized Crime Commission says these suspects facilitated the employment of individuals at the facility. A total of 435 POGO workers were nabbed last week at the Chinese-run hub, which is located just in front of the PITX. It was allegedly running investment and love scams using foreign nationals. Meanwhile, the National Police has formed tracker teams to chase down the country's remaining POGOs.
Our focus is the whole Metro Manila, hindi lang yung sa southern. Dahil doon sa information natin, hindi lang ang POGO, they are not just sitting on one cities but all over Metro Manila. May mga kasunod pa to. Hopefully it's bigger and para mabawasan yung problema natin sa POGO at baka matapos din natin.
A legal victory for U.S. President Donald Trump as a federal judge upholds his ban on the Associated Press. The judge, a Trump appointee, junked the news agency's request to immediately restore full access for its journalists who have been barred from the White House and Air Force One for refusing to call the Gulf of Mexico Gulf of America. After the ruling, White House officials said asking the President of the United States questions in the Oval Office or aboard Air Force One is a privilege granted to journalists, not a legal right. A retired French surgeon accused of rape and sexual assault admits to committing the despicable acts. The 74-year-old surgeon appeared in court Monday for the opening of his trial, where he said he's aware that the harm he's caused is beyond repair. The accused faces charges of aggravated rape and sexual assault against 299 victims, most of them children. The crimes spanning 25 years from 1989 to 2014. He faces up to 20 years in jail if found guilty. Still in France, where local chefs set a brand new Guinness World Record. That's for the world's largest cheese fondue. Their product reached a volume of 2 cubic meters and weighed in at 4,800 pounds. The previous Swiss record set in 2009 was at 3,100 pounds. The event in the Jura region attracted over 5,000 people despite rainy and windy conditions. Over now to Saudi Arabia, where a seasonal lake in the middle of a desert is attracting tourists. Visitors from all over the Gulf countries come to this phenomenon to cool off and even participate in water sports like jet skiing. Winter rains have been forming such a lake in the small town of Al Zulfi for the past 3 years.
I used to pray every night and ask God to create a lake near my farm, and He made my wish come true and gave me this jet ski and the skills to go with it. I hope I have developed some great skills. The strange thing about this place is that the water is located between the sand dunes, a sight you might not find anywhere else in Saudi Arabia. People from various Gulf countries, such as Kuwait, Dubai, and Qatar, visit this spot. It has become like a park and is almost the only outlet in the area.
We're taking another breather. Still to come, get to know the performers at this year's Oscars. Entertainment and sports after the break. Stay with us. You're still watching Newsfeed at noon. Sad news in entertainment. Roberta Flack, one of the most soulful and influential voices in music, has passed away. Her publicist announced her death Monday, days after she celebrated her 88th birthday last February 10. Flack became a superstar in the 70s with a genre-defying style that combined elements of jazz, soul, pop, and R&B. She was the first artist to win 2 straight Grammy Record of the Year trophies for the songs First Time I Ever Saw Your Face in 1973 and Killing Me Softly with his song in 1974. In 2022, Flack revealed her struggle with a progressive illness, ALS, that impacts nerve cells, causing paralysis and death. In other news, the performers for the 2025 Oscars have been announced. Among them, American pop star Doja Cat, Blackpink, and British singer-songwriter Ray, who will all perform for what the Academy describes as a show-stopping celebration of cinema. Also performing at the ceremony, Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande, who both star in the Best Picture-nominated film Wicked. The Oscars will be held on March 2 and will be hosted by none other than comedian Conan O'Brien. Meanwhile, historical epic Shogun wins big at the 31st Screen Actors Guild or SAG Awards. Shogun won the prestigious Best Drama Series Ensemble. It stars Hiroyuki Sanada, and Anna Sawai also won Best Actor and Best Actress in a Drama Series. Meanwhile, Hulu series Only Murders in the Building was hailed Best TV. Sports news now. Decorated PBA champion Alex Cabagnot is shifting from the pros to the collegiate ranks once again. The veteran playmaker has joined the coaching staff of the UE Red Warriors, led by its new head coach, Chris Gavina. Cabagnot last saw action for the Converge Fiber Xers in the PBA. The 9-time champion has yet to officially announce his retirement from active play, but he is best known as part of the San Miguel Beermen's so-called Death Five that won multiple PBA championships in the past decade. From the hardcore to the fight cage, Filipino MMA champion Joshua Pasio says he's open to a rematch with American fighter Jared Brooks. Last week, Pasio scored a thrilling TKO win over Brooks in Qatar to become the undisputed one-strawweight world champion. In an interview on the Scorecard, Pasio says their rivalry has yet to reach its peak.
Kung titignan natin yung strawweight division, who's the best strawweights right now in the planet? It's just, I think, yeah, maybe there is, but 2, me and him. We are still young.
Yeah.
He's in his peak. I'm in my peak. No, I'm not yet in my peak. I'm just 29 years old.
Yeah.
Long years ahead, so wala pang mag-retire sa amin din. Expect, we will see each other. We will see each other in the years to come.
And before we go, some of the country's top car collectors once again roll out their prized possessions not for a race, but for a cause. This year's event raised a whopping 12.7 million pesos, all for automotive scholars and a future digital school. Our mobility correspondent G. Baroga gives us a look.
The Filipino car community feasts on sports cars, vintage cars, even electric vehicles, with over 200 on display here in the streets of BGC. Top auto clubs, collectors, and car enthusiasts participate in this charity-driven event.
Shiny Ferraris,
Porsches and Benzes, name it, it's here. But these dream machines aren't just turning heads, they're changing lives.
1, 2, 3!
This charity event started as a passion project among a few car lovers. Now, 6 years later, it has grown to 237 cars stretching across 4 blocks in BGC. And at the center of it all is Bilyonaryo Charlie Rufino, who wears his love for cars and giving back on his sleeve.
It's really a fundraising for our schools. We have a school for the poorest of the poor, so we have about 10,000 kids, full board and lodging, and we teach them in 2 campuses in Cavite and 2 campuses in Cebu. So this is really for the graduates of the scholars that we have for automotive. So every year we have that.
The funds will support scholars at the Sisters of Mary School or SOM, providing free full-board education to about 10,000 students in Cavite and Cebu. Plus, they're building a digital training center, equipping future graduates with tech-driven skills for the automotive industry. Sister Teresita Sumalabe of SOM says that the number of scholars has grown from just 10 in the beginning to 146 last year. She expresses gratitude to the event organizers for choosing SOM as the main beneficiary, noting that each scholar's tuition costs about 60,000 pesos per school year.
They will not only help us for the scholarship grants, but also they'll be helping us with the proceeds from these sports cars for a cause would be used also in acquiring the facilities for the new for the ongoing construction, no? But for the facilities, that means that it will be used in the school, in the digital training center.
But it's not just about charity. It's also a showcase of dream machines. And of course, what's a car event without some showstoppers? Willie Titen, president of Auto Hub Group, brought out 2 of the finest Lotuses, Emira and Evora.
It's hitting 2 birds with 1 stone, right? You're helping somebody, okay, and at the same time, you're showcasing your cars, no? So it's for a good cause. And at the same time, you get to meet a lot of people here, old friends, new friends, and future friends. So that will be a great event for all of us.
As the sun sets on another successful year, Rufino is already setting his sights on 2026. More cars, more donors, and more students whose lives will change because of sports cars with a purpose. For BNC Mobility, G. Baroga.
And those in the news this hour, I'm Mai Rodriguez. Keep it here on the Bilyonaryo News Channel. Good afternoon.